packaging and presenting a powerful career portfolio is something that I've been challenging the students that I work with to consider. And particularly when I work with students, they're typically high school or college aged. But I do find that this is an opportunity or sometimes an overlooked, I would say, an overlooked element of interviewing and job searching, particularly if you've been in a role for quite some time and or if you've progressed through an organization for quite some time. And so I've come today to stretch your mind and to give you some creative ways that you could elevate your candidacy for employment opportunities, also for scholarships, and anywhere where you are in front of a decision maker and competing essentially for an opportunity. And so you do that by way of presenting, packaging, which is putting it all together. We'll talk about the elements inside, and then presenting what I call a powerful portfolio. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So the inspiration for this came when I was working at a high school, and that is me in the center. I was a head cheerleading coach at a high school in Prince George's County, Maryland. And we were interviewing, I looked quite young, and I was 23 at the time. Not much older than the girls, by the way, and they gave me a run for my money. But we were interviewing for an athletic director. And because I was one of the head coaches, I was able to sit in on the interview process. And so we interviewed this one candidate, talk about blow your mind. He came in with a portfolio. I will never forget this. Okay, so we interviewed him. He was fluid in his thoughts. He was prepared, professional, timely. He met all of the criteria already. And when we were wrapping up his interview, we said, "Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask the committee?" And he said he had a few questions. He asked them. And then as we were wrapping up, he said, "I prepared something for each of you. I'd like to leave you with a portfolio so that you can have an opportunity to look at my past work as you're considering my candidacy." When he handed it over, I mean, it was impeccable. It was bounded, it was in color, it was thick, it was it had like protective sleeves. You could tell he took his time. Like this man was the real deal. He had photos of all of his past basketball teams, how much money they fundraised. He had text messages from parents who were announcing or giving him praise for what he had done, community awards. He had his collegiate basketball stats. I mean, it was amazing. It blew my mind. 2013 is when I met this man. I remember his name. I still remember it vividly. It left a strong impression. No other candidate after that mattered, to be quite frank. And ever since then, I have been coaching my students. If you want to leave a memorable impression, leave them with something tangible. Leave them with an element that they won't forget what you could potentially bring to the table. And so that has been the inspiration behind packaging and presenting a powerful portfolio. And while he did give me an example or a guideline as to how to do that, I put a little sauce on it today. And so I got a little extra sauce that I wanted to share. So let's hop in with this question. What do you feel is a portfolio in your own words? And to respond to this, you can either type it in the chat or you can go to menti.com and type in that code, whichever your preference is. You can respond in the chat. What is, in words, what is a portfolio to you? Like, define it for me. Define it in words. What is a portfolio to you? And I will give you all a second to hop in. I said if I ever had the opportunity to find what he left us, like the portfolio, I would love to use it as an example, but that would be cheating. Examples of your past work, it's visual, very good. Showcases your talents, I love that. Something that showcases yourself, advertising your talents and abilities, awesome. Let's see, John in the chat says, much like an artist portfolio, it's a sampling of historical work to highlight what I've done. Yep. A more complete, expanded resume with more detailed examples and explanation of accomplishments. Ooh, that's good. That's good, Carrie. A package of myself. I love that language. A package. Okay, so this is how I defined it. It's a physical or digital package. So me and Sarah are speaking the same language of your character, your credentials. Those are like the earnings or the level of expertise that you have been designated. Your certifications or degrees, those sorts of things. And it is so it's of your character, your credentials, and your competency. It's displaying what you do proficiently well. I feel a powerful portfolio will display all of those elements. And so people can speak to your character. Civil work can speak to your character. Obviously, degrees, awards, certificates, accolades speak to your credentials, and then your competency. We're gonna talk about that. Oh, I can't give it to you all. I can't give it to you all, but good. It looks like you all have a good idea of what it is. Okay, tell me this. We're gonna play. You all will have to use Menti for that. And there's just one question I want to ask for you, and it's time. You all have 15 seconds. So you type in your name there. I see we got our first player. Got two players on the board. Two players on the board. Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead, and if you're not using Menti.com but you wanna contribute, you can type your comments in the questions box as well. But there's this one question that I have that I want to ask you. I'll give you all a few seconds to provide your name. If you're at menti.com, y'all are coming in. I love your icons. Super cute. Super, super cute. Okay, you're coming in. You're coming in. I give you some time so I can slow down a little bit. Okay, 15 seconds to answer this question. What goes inside a portfolio? Multiple choice, documents, images, certificates, documents, trainings, accomplishments, skills, documents, informal kudos, trainings, images. Okay. Yes, all of the above. I got you guys on the first one. I mean, I was trying to make it a little challenging, and you guys kind of fell for it. But yeah, all of the above. Documents, images. It doesn't have to be a formal recognition. It could be an email. It could be a text message. It could be a screenshot. It's really how you design the image that will be inside of the portfolio. So good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, Melissa. Melissa is on it, and so R is right behind. Good stuff. Melissa is the fastest. Quick with the fingers. I love it. So let's talk about the packaging. What goes inside the elements of the portfolio? First, we'll talk about the credentials, and your credentials can be displayed by way of you could do a professional summary. Your professional summary could be images. Let's say you were leading a Boys and Girls Club. You have an image of you in front of a Boys and Girls Club. What do you call those things that you stand in front of? Like a podium. It can be in my mind, I can visualize it, but I can't get it out into words. A collage of you in your leadership roles. That could be your summary. So your summary can be in words or visuals. It could be your resume, and you could spruce up your resume by adding in some color elements and some images. And I want to start preface our conversation today by saying you don't have to be in an artsy role or pursuing an artsy role to leave an impact with your portfolio. It's really about creativity, lasting impression, and that can be done across any industry. It's not common practice to encourage others across industries who are not in, graphic design, UX, which is like the user experience of online websites. Any kind of artist or visual artist, web designer, photographer, outside of those common artsy roles, it's not common for professionals to prepare a career portfolio. But I'm never going for the common. I'm going for excellence in everything, every time. That's my personal motto. And so I feel no matter what profession you're in, you can display creatively your credentials, your competency, and your character. So again, your certifications, so photos of those. So some of us are going to have to go through some files any certificates that you have, CPR, I don't know, early childhood education. Let's say you got a certificate in Excel, project management, and any trainings. And it doesn't have to always relate to the work that you're doing, because again, you also want to speak to your character. So if you are in the finance industry, but you are certified in CPR, that comes in handy if you're in the office and someone has an emergency. If you are in graphic design, but you're certified in, or you have a lot of experience in handling signing, that comes in handy if you have someone who comes in who may be hearing impaired. So I guess getting you out of the linear, maybe like your linear understanding of what's expected of you in that specific role, and really thinking broadly about how you can contribute value to an organization. And all of that can be encompassed in your portfolio. So also your work experience. So any project flyers or proposals that you prepared, even those that were not accepted, like if you thought through that's your intellectual property. It doesn't matter if it was implemented or not, but if you prepared something, that's a great thing to add to your portfolio. It shows that you take initiative. You can conceptualize something from start to finish, even if it were not utilized. Any event flyers that you did or have done, I know in some of our past roles, I have, during the holiday season, I may organize an office potluck or organize a back to school drive. And those event flyers I will typically include in my portfolio. It speaks to my character, going above and beyond in the workplace. Even that outside of my role, maximizing the talent that we have, contributing outside of our organization. So, think broadly. Any memorandums that you wrote or drafted, any action photos with you at work. Maybe if you all had a Bring Your Child to Work Day, you might include that. Maybe if you were a guest speaker at Bring Your Child to Work Day in the board conference room, you have a photo of that. So any photos of you at work, again, speaking to your character, your credentials, your competency. Any special projects that you've been assigned and or you have took initiative to create, however you want to capture that in an image or in words. Any writing assignments or any case studies that you've contributed, those are all a part of your work experience. And these things can speak to your competency. They're your credentials, but they're also your competency. And some of them will give us a peek into your character. Now, don't be shy now. Brag a little bit too, because you got bragging rights. So if anyone has ever written you a letter of recommendation for previous roles, if you have some recommenders who have agreed to verbally be a reference for you, asking them to transcribe that reference into a letter so you can include it in your portfolio. What you can even do is you can ask them to send you an audio message of them recommending you. You can transcribe it and put it onto letterhead. Haha. Easy for them, a little bit more tedious for you, but you capture their support. Any articles in the media, maybe something highlighting the work that you've done. You don't have to be the face of the article, but if you can highlight or circle around like the initiative that maybe you thought through or you brought to the office and it's being recognized, definitely a bragging right there. Any awards or recognition that you might have received, again, it can be outside of your professional experience. If you're in a fraternity, sorority, if you're active at your church, if you do any kind of community involvement, if you are a part of your neighborhood association, if you're president. So all of those things, again, speak to your character. Any community service involvement and any relevant talent or skills. And this comes in mind. Let's say you like to cook or you're a great baker, and in your past roles, you might have bought in cakes for others on their birthday, and you have an image of your past team celebrating a team member's birthday. You might include that, and I'll talk about this in a second. But all of these things should have a brief description. But again, it's a little lighthearted, but it does speak to your gentleness and your thoughtfulness and your desire to create camaraderie. And all of those things drive a healthy workplace. And so it's a great thing to include. I know you weren't thinking about that. Oh, this is one that I know most people don't think about. Any records, Your performance evaluations are great things to add to your portfolio, and most people are not doing this. For obvious reasons, of course. Some of us are a little private. We call it privacy, but I just think it's lack of creativity, because you could totally take a copy of your performance record and crop out the ones that you don't like and restructure the document. Take a little time, yes, but I think your performance evaluations, even including those where you were challenged in, but being able to show a decision maker that maybe you were able to progress, and or you've always been exceptional, seeing what other colleagues speak about you in your past workplace. When you're bringing this to a new employer, I think that's powerful. I think bringing your performance evaluation is powerful. Yeah. Any emails of kudos that you've gotten, let's say you did a project, you work with a team, and I don't know, the assistant to the CEO sends you an email, man, you were awesome in today's meeting. We are so glad to have you on this team. Super informal, it's only 2 sentences, but I wouldn't leave that out. I wouldn't leave that out. Just dress it up a little bit and say where it came from in a caption. If you teach any courses, or if you volunteer to teach or do any trainings, train the trainers, and you present an evaluation at the end of that, which you should always do for this purpose, adding those, adding those. An example of one, let's say someone left a comment in the additional comments area, or if you're really fancy, you may capitalize on your training evaluations by sending them to like a link, like a Google link or SurveyMonkey, so that you can take the analytical data, which is the numbers, and then you could speak to those evaluations in the term of like 80% of respondents feel that I am fluid in my thoughts and understand my subject matter, easy to train, making complex things simple, that sort of thing. And then any thank you notes that you get. And that includes cards of like thank you, gratitude, cards of any kind of card of support or note that you might get, including sticky notes. Including sticky notes. I remember in one of my roles, I had the special assistant to the CEO who sat in on a training that I did for the entire enterprise of a former office that I worked for. And she wrote on a sticky note, "You were fantastic and a superstar for your department." I kept that sticky note. I took a photo of it, and obviously, I have not used it yet because I haven't had a reason to. But if I were packaging a portfolio and preparing for something, I would take that photo. I took a photo of it, so I would take that photo, add it to a Word doc, and put a brief description in on the Word doc about who wrote the note and any context provided for it. And so, yes, thank you notes, even if they're informal, they matter. They matter. Sue has a question. Do you need to be in the photos or showing students that you organize? So I don't think you have to be in the photo. It would be great if you were. But if you're not in the photo, again, everything that you include should have a brief description somewhere on the page about what a person would be viewing. So if you are taking photos or copies, you would be putting them into a Word doc, or you could use Canva, or you can use a website, WordPress. But essentially, you would minimize it a little bit so that you can create a little space at the end to provide a caption. You can also put the captions on the side as well, depending on how creative you want it to be. But super great questions, Sue. So it doesn't just have to be you, it could be others. But obviously, we want to provide some context to our whoever is viewing the portfolio. We want them to know like what this is. We don't want them to guess. We want them to say, "Oh, wow," make a connection between what we're sharing. Great question. So that is what we put inside. Let's talk about the options that you have to package it. Like basically what it looks like. What do you want this thing to look like? Now, it can get expensive. We could speak very minimal would be binding it in like when you had a project in school, you had a book report and it needed a sleeve. That would be the most minimal way to do this. I wouldn't suggest a folder unless it had the 3 prongs where you could insert. That would mean you'd have to hole punch each document. That would be the most minimal and cost-effective way to do this. But if you wanted to, and if you wanted to spruce it up a notch, I'll give you some examples of what that would look like. But obviously, this will cost you some change. And Staples is my best go-to. Staples and Office Depot, depending on where you're located, they also have a printing facility. But it could also be Vistaprint. MOO.com, they call it Moo, or other online or digital options in which you could print a portfolio, and also Canva. And I will write them all in the chat. I should have put them on the slide. I'll write them all in the chat. And those are ways in which you could print your digital portfolio after you've already designed it in Word. So I wrote those three there. So if you were looking to spruce it up a little bit, let's see, I'm gonna put it over here. Before you did that, before you spruced it up a little bit or got to the design element, thinking about these things that I have here on the slide, I want you to think about like what you wanted to add to the portfolio, and I think it would depend on where you're planning to present it. I do believe, just kind of like your resume, the portfolio should be tailored to the opportunity that you're pursuing. If it's a leadership role, if it's a community-based role, is it a volunteer role? So based off of what you are looking to present it, based off of who and what kind of organization you're looking to present a portfolio to, should determine what you put inside of it. But if you're creating your first one and it's pretty general, I would suggest doing a brain dump exercise. So that's you thinking about everything in its entirety. I actually prompted my mom to do this exercise as she was applying for a management role, well, an executive management role, and she's been in her role for maybe 22 years. And in her mind, she remembers everything that she has done. But it's no way, like, if you really sit down and think about what was my first job? What did I learn there? What did I learn? What were my first early career roles that I learned? What are some of the areas that I volunteered when I was young and in my late 20s and 30s? Like, really brain dumping all of that. That takes some time. It is when you do that that you discover there's so many experiences that you've had that you've been underselling. And so take some time to really think about that, like all of your encounters and experiences, and write them down. And then you go on a massive hunt to gather any documents that could provide an imagery for a viewer of that experience. It could be a photo, it could be a certificate, it could be emails. That's a good thing about email, is that it's automatically keeping record for us. And so you may find that you have access to emails that you could go and refurbish and recreate documents for your portfolio as well. And obviously, I always suggest that you would make a copy. You wouldn't send or give away an original. I know I shouldn't have to say that, but I'm going to say it. But yes, make copies. And then ultimately, you can make a decision if you'd like to do it digital or in a physical format. My preference, well, it depends on whom is on the other side of the table. And I hate to be age biased, but if the decision makers are who may not be technology happy, I'm not going to call them savvy. You could be savvy with technology but don't like using it, and I've encountered those individuals. I wouldn't suggest sending them to a digital portfolio. That's too much work. I would definitely recommend a traditional way, which would be a physical, something that you could give them. I think the physical one is probably, unless you're going for something that's visual, and those persons in that environment are accustomed to using online softwares and web pages and can navigate, they don't mind like clicking around, figuring it out. If you know that that's that type of organization and or persons, then definitely go digital. But if you're unsure, I think a physical copy is your best concern, because, is your best option. And think about this. You do all this work, you want them to see it. You want them to see it and have a connection with you immediately. Like, not when they leave the interview, or when you leave, and oh yeah, I remember that guy sent over that thing. What's the address again? How you get there? Like, immediately. I want you all to do that. And they have it with them. Like you were with them always, kind of. It's almost like a BFF necklace. Like they're with you always. I just think that that's really powerful, and I would love to hear you all's thoughts on that. What would you say, and what your immediate preference would be? Would you prefer a digital or printed? You can drop that in the chat. What are you thinking? Are you thinking, oh, I think I may want to do a digital one, or I think I want to do a print version, or if you have one already. So here's some examples of it being printed. It can be bound or spiral. And this is exactly what it would look like. It can be stapled, and it could be landscape or portrait. And all of this could be done at Staples. If you were looking at something like this and it was in color, I'd say plan for a budget depending on how many pages that you have and if those pages would be in color, which I hope that they would be. And the material that you like, glossy, matte, thick, all of those um, options make a difference in cost. But at minimum, I would say plan to spend at least $30 per portfolio. At minimum. Again, you want to stand out, it's going to cost you. This is an early investment. But it's powerful. I'm trying to tell you. I wish I had an opportunity to after I share this with you to see if you all actually come up with one and if you had a chance to use it and if it made a decision or made a difference in your processing. I would love that. I would love to do a case study. Carrie, so printed. I feel that digital may be easy to ignore if it is an in-person interview, and digital if it's a Zoom interview. Oh, I love that. Love that. I agree. Yeah, you could say I love to share my screen and share with you my portfolio. Um, and you could also, if it's by way of Zoom, if it's a virtual interview, prior to the interview, you can ask for the mailing address and say I'd like to send over my portfolio to accompany my interview next week. Would you be willing to share your mailing address? You could do that. But yeah, it is an easy way to definitely get ignored if it's digital and you have a virtual. It's actually a great observation. So yep, you have Staples. I didn't mention that. You have it's actually Canva. I have a typo there. But definitely staples.com. You can print this. And also Office Depot, some of them have printing as well. Put that in the comments. So the last few tips that I wanted to leave with you is always include a description for each of the documents. And don't forget your section dividers. Remember when you used to have like a multi-section folder for all of your classes? And so you can section out awards, recognition, letters of recommendation, past projects, special projects, community service, work experience, and add those dividers. And then obviously make copies to share if you know that there'll be multiple persons at the table. And so if you have an opportunity that's coming up and you're thinking about preparing a portfolio, and you're not sure how many people will be there and if it will be in person or virtual, then just ask. If you are extended the opportunity to interview, you'll just ask the coordinator, I'd like to prepare a portfolio for the decision makers. Would you mind sharing how many persons will be attending the interview? And there you go. Nothing beats a failure but a try, and doesn't hurt to ask. The most people can say is no, and we shouldn't fear no. Sometimes rejection is not a bad thing, just maybe the timing. So, my friends, those are my quick tidbits on presenting and packaging a professional or career portfolio. And I want to end by saying this: the impression that you make on a person is invaluable, and you can't make it a second time. And so, if you have any opportunity to set or be a competitive advantage or to set a precedence to send a message, presenting a powerful portfolio is a great way to do that. In addition to looking killer now and being fluid and having experience, but I think the portfolio is a great complement to all that you would be bringing to an organization. I think your portfolio should definitely resemble to some degree your resume. I think it's an extended version because typically we try to only capture what's like exceptionally, explicitly relevant to what we're applying for, and your portfolio will have an extended version of that. But certainly your extreme high, most proud, most accomplished things, some of them may be new and your newest role, and maybe if you had any recent impact in that, I think that should be included. So depending on how often you move around, how often you move up or across, or how active you are in your community, I'm very active. So it would do me a good deed to update it at least once a year. Yeah.